Today, we've got prospects and injured players that you need to stash on your fantasy baseball team, like Shane Bieber and Spencer Arrighetti, who have been on fire in their rehab starts. And then we have Spencer Drones, who has been smashing the ball of late. Those names and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here as always with my brother, my co-host, partner in crime, Matthew Wadney. As you can see if you're watching on YouTube, and if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that little bell below. That will subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us as well. And lastly, but what's most important to help you guys win your fantasy baseball leagues, join Matt and I on the Insider's Track. When we do our waiver wire episodes, we're going to rank those guys for you, tell you how to prioritize them when you're picking them up. And when we get those next group of big name prospects, like we're talking about 5 of them today, when they get called up, you'll get an instant text message alert going right to your phone. No one else in the industry is offering that. So guys, check us out on the Insider's Track. The link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And all right, guys, this time of the week, we do injured players and we do prospects. And listen, a lot of prospects have been called up, this year in general. We have this little next wave here of some, big names. There's a new number one prospect in all of baseball. I don't even think we've talked about him yet since the change. And then, like I said, Araghetti and Bieber have been on fire in their rehab starts. So, Matt, why don't you take the wheel? Where are we going first today, my brother?
All right, let's start off with change of pace for once, and let's go with the injured players. Let's open up with that. Let's open up with Shane Bieber. I think a player that we all need to really speak about because I think his return is pretty imminent. He's already made two rehab starts and got another one on Tuesday. He's eligible to return on August 8th, which is funny enough next, I think Friday, if I'm not mistaken, and that is really soon now. Two scenarios can happen where he pitches Tuesday and he's eligible. He comes back that Monday, or they give him one more rehab start, depending on how things go in the next one. But I mean, I don't think there's much time left for him to be still on the IL. I mean, Shane Bieber himself, I think wholeheartedly needs to be owned. He's only 40% owned currently today as we're recording, and that should change wholeheartedly. Look, he fanned 7 in his last outing in 5 innings. He's done
Double-A, 4 innings. He just looked great. Looked fantastic.
Yeah, and then when he was in rook ball, which I mean is rook ball, but still 4 innings and 10 strikeouts, and then in A plus he crushed guys too. So I mean, he is just doing everything he needs to do to get out there and do it. He's already gotten the bullpen sessions and all that. So Shane Bieber, I think, is due back at any time. And, you look right before he went down to Tommy John last year, those 12 innings of brilliance. And I mean, a true brilliance, 20 strikeouts in that time, no earned runs, under a 1 whip. Dude was just crushing people. And he had a little bit of air quote down year in 2023, where he still had a 3.8 ERA through 128 innings pitched and 107 strikeouts, which was so uncharacteristic for him that he was about to just unload in 24, but unfortunately just did not have the health of the elbow. So for Shane Bieber this year, I think the get right is going to come. I don't think it's going to be instant impact. Look at Yuri Perez, how long it took for him to get right, about 3 starts before the magic pretty much came back. So I expect a little bit of a slow start, but hey, look, even if it's half serviceable where you have to bench him over the next 4 weeks, but then you have full Shane Bieber upside in September when playoffs actually matter, because playoffs are pretty imminent as well. That is the key part. He could be the guy that changes your whole rotation and helps you win a championship. So Shane Bieber, seriously, 40% owned, must add.
Yeah, man, great take on Bieber. I feel like he's been one of the darlings of these injured player episodes all year, just because of how much we both thought he was going to have an impact when he comes back, and it looks like that impact is right around the corner. Like you said, great breakdown on him. I think if I had to give you a projection the rest of the way, it's a low to mid twos ERA, ton of strikeouts. Honestly, the control is always one of the last things to come back from an injured player, but through the 7 innings he's thrown in the minors, he has a .68 whip. So the control's been pretty on point so far, too. So I'm not even going to go out and be like, hey, his whip might be horrible. Bieber's a career 1-1-1 whip guy over 843 innings. His control's actually always been pretty good. So that might be there for a guy like Bieber who's always had it and looks like he still has it right now. Must add, absolute must add if you have the IL spot. Shane Bieber, Cleveland Guardians starting pitcher, 40% owned on Yahoo. Let's move on to another great starting pitcher who has been doing pretty good down there in the minors, and it's the Yeti himself, Spencer Arrighetti, 33% owned on Yahoo, pitches for those Houston Astros, of course. And listen, if you missed out on Bieber, there's a little bit of room still here. 7% less owned is Spencer Arrighetti. And Dana Brown, Astros manager, came out and said Araghetti will make one more rehab start and then he will join the roster. Looks like he's going to start in Saturday on AAA. And then actually a bonus thing, not on the episode, but quick bonus thing, Christian Javier is not far behind Spencer Araghetti, Dana Brown also said. But in Araghetti's last start, he went 3.1 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 hits, a walk, struck out 2. He was a little bit better in, the rehab outing before that, where he threw 3 scoreless innings, 4 strikeouts, and that was in Double-A. But listen, he might not be as good as Shane Bieber, but Araghetti had a nice finish to the last, I think it was 11, 12 starts last year where he pitched very, very good. He was okay in his, I believe it was 2 starts he made before he went down this year. Yeah, it was a 5.59 ERA, but it was a sub-1 whip, 0.93 whip, 9 innings, 8 strikeouts. So I do love me some Spencer Arrighetti, young, big pitcher. I think he's going to be fairly good when he comes back. And listen, the Astros are in the thick of it right now, man. They're playing for, a playoff spot over there. So I think Arrighetti is going to be, a nice little piece of the rotation if he can figure it out.
Yeah, I like the Yeti. Unfortunately, that injury kind of crushed a lot of the fantasy value. But I think, hey, if he can work himself back and be the guy we think he's going to be, it's going to be great. Obviously, carry some risk, but I think that you know what, it's worth taking a shot because that what the upside we saw in that second half of the season last year, I think is definitely worth taking a shot on him. So I'm adding him everywhere. Let's move on. Let's sneak in this last guy before the break. Bryce Miller, of the Seattle Mariners, starting pitcher. So this one is super risky. He's dealing with elbow injuries. He's expected back on what is RotoWire saying, the 12th. And I could see that, but also I could see another week out. But ultimately, he's getting his first rehab start, and then we'll see kind of how it goes, finishing up his live bullpens and things like that. Bryce Miller has been horrendous this year. If you really look at what he's done, it's a 5.73 ERA on the season through 48 innings and a 1.54 WHIP with 39 strikeouts. Now, that really isn't his game over the last 2 years. I mean, granted, he's only been up in the bigs for 2 years, but he's been good. I mean, yes, the underlying stats literally hate him, like Framil Valdez, who I think is a good comp for him because they both are like under the hood nightmares for guys that love, advanced statistics because they just never line up with it. And Bryce Miller is just no exception to that. He just can't line up with it, but has just been successful over his first 2 years in the bigs, especially last year. I think that he's worth taking a shot on, even if he does go down to, which I think is possible, is Tommy John. And you know what? It is what it is. But at least you know what? You're not paying the draft capital and things like that. He's out there in 63% of the leagues. He's a little bit higher owned than we normally talk about, but he's definitely worth the stash. And even in a lot of aspects, trying to trade for him to see if you can get him on your IL to stash. Because if he does come back to full force and full, performance that I think he can do, or even, 75, 85%, he could be very dangerous for your rotation. And I think he could be a serious upgrade too, because he was going as a top 25 pitcher come draft season. And if he can even, finish, the rest of the season out as a top 36 pitcher, you've just gotten a steal. So I'm trying to trade for him. I'm trying to add him and I'm trying to hold him everywhere I can because I just want to take the shot. And obviously, if I'm trading for him, I'm not paying a high price. So Bryce Miller is definitely worth it and an ad. Before I let Dom get his side of things, we got a little something coming up, and then after the break too, got names like Luis Gil and Nestor Cortes, and should you be stashing them, and what your expectations should be for them coming up next. And okay, there's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the ballpark food, and a beer is as looking it. And if you're looking to go for a last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets even easier with last minute deals, all in pricing, lowest prices, guaranteed. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, tickets prices drop as the game gets closer. So once the first pitch, as you get closer to the first pitch, you can snag some serious deals. And I do this all the time. I head down to Philly. I go to Xfinity Live. If you're, a Philly a native, you know what I'm talking about. It's awesome, awesome little place. And well, not little at all, but you hang out, you have a couple beers, and you're like, oh wow, prices dropped to a really good point. I hop on Game Time, and boom, I get a ticket within minutes. It's awesome. I get a view from my seat, so I make sure that I'm not sitting behind a pole. It's absolutely great. So I just love it all in the one pricing. I have no surprises. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem a code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And look, you want a little bit more than what we offer this 30-minute podcast. Make sure to check us out on that Insider Track. We don't call it Insider Track for no reason. You get inside information from the Locked On Fantasy Baseball crew here between Dom and I. You'll be able to get, rankings of waiver wires. You're going to be able to get key, stats that we think we should be highlighted from every episode. You're going to be able to ask us questions, get a response in 24 hours. So much more. Plus, prospect call-up notifications to keep you ahead of your league. You don't want to miss out. This is the perfect time of the year with them September call-ups coming up around the corner. So check us out. Links in the description below. And as an added bonus, you get a free 2 weeks when you get first sign up. So check us out. All right, Dom, without further ado, how you feeling about Bryce Miller?
So with Bryce Miller, I will say this because I know our avid fans probably already know this. I wasn't a big Bryce Miller guy coming into the year. I had him ranked a lot lower than where he was being drafted. Don't want to take a victory lap, especially when the guy was dealing with injury, probably dealing with it way before, he actually got put on the IL, to be honest with you, because the numbers for Miller were just so bad this year. I don't think he's as bad as the 5.73 ERA and the 1.5 WHIP. But I don't think Bryce Miller as good as he was in 2024 either. When you look at Bryce Miller's career numbers, it's a 3.82 ERA through 66 starts. Under that K per 9 and a 1.11 WHIP, I'd say, yeah, that's probably about the guy he is. The control's really good. The run suppression is, I think, where he's going to suffer. Even in Seattle, still gives up a lot more home runs than I would like. Gave up 21 home runs last year. Not a crazy number, but still a bit higher than you'd like to see. So, but when it's free 99, like you said, Matt, if you're able to go out there and snag Bryce Miller off the waiver wire, he's actually only 63% owned. And for a guy, like you said, who was being drafted as a top 25 starting pitcher to only be 63% owned at this point in the year, you could just snag him, stash him on your IL when he comes back. You might have yourself someone who's fairly serviceable, to be honest, in my thoughts. And Miller looks like he's going to begin his rehab assignment this week on Friday. So, another pitcher. That's 3 starting pitchers, 2 already on rehab assignments, 1 who is starting one. So you don't really see a lot of time, especially this late in the year. You got some guys that you can snag off the waiver wire that are going to, be impact players going down the stretch. And I think Bryce Miller will help your fantasy baseball team if you pick him up and stash him now. Let's move on to a New York Yankee, another starting pitcher who is on his way back from injury. It's Luis Gil. Gil had a strong first half. I don't want to say he had a great year last year. Numbers look good on the surface. Had a really, really good first half, really, really bad second half. I think it had a lot to do with fatigue. The league started to get the book on him, and got around, and he was getting smacked around himself, by the league when it comes to, just making contact, hitting home runs off him. So it looks like Boone is lined up to throw 75 pitches in what will be his 4th rehab start. And that's actually today as recording on Tuesday. So you know what? It looks like he might be back this Sunday in Miami, which is going to be a great spot to go for Luis Gil, who's only 47% owned on Yahoo. I like him. I think the control's really always been Luis Gil's downfall. So if he gets that feel for, hey, I could put my pitches, where I want them at least most of the time, that's going to help a guy like Gil. I'll read you off the numbers real quick from last year. Gil had threw 151 innings, 3.50 ERA, 171 strikeouts, and a 1.19 whip. But once again, that second half was really bad, and he had 77 walks in 151 innings, which was really bad. So far in the minors on his rehab assignment, as I pull that up real quick, he has, once again, it's 4 starts, 4 Gil so far. ERA hasn't been good. 7.20 ERA, 10 innings, 17 strikeouts, 1.4 whip. So that control still really isn't under control yet for Gil. Don't like him as good as the 3 guys we just talked about, so I put Gil 4th out of the names we talked about so far today. But 47% owned on Yahoo. He's out there, pitches for the Yankees, might get some wins. Matt, I think you're muted.
Thank you, sir. So I like Gil. He's one of those players where I'm intrigued to own him. You know what I'm saying? Like going into the season, I definitely would have drafted him in a lot of places. It's just a matter of the price was just getting a little out of control. Now I get a little taste of that now that he's been injured all season. So let's see what he got. I'm definitely adding him, but let's move on. So about Nestor Cortes, the starting pitcher for, the Milwaukee Brewers. I feel like this is just a straight pitching episode in terms of stashing guys, but there's so many good names out there this year. And this one, I think, is the weakest name of them all, in all honesty. And I'm not bringing out the haterade, but we need to talk about it. Nestor Cortes has upside. Don't get me wrong. He's been there. He's been in the show. He's been a really good pitcher. Going to Milwaukee last year, and I believe it was his first year in Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm double checking myself right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're right.
Yeah. No, last year's with the Spankies, actually. So this year is his first year with Milwaukee, and his final year with the Yankees. Honestly, the first half was better than the the second, air quotes. But you look at it, he just had one really bad July, and then August and September he really rounded it out with a really good end to the season. But it was just really rough to own him because he did have big blow up games. And this year he comes in, he's dealing with an elbow injury, and not only that, new year, new team, that rule always comes in the fold too, where you're moving to a new city and you're trying to get things done. Players always have negative regression that first year, and I don't really like that for him. Now you mix in the elbow injury and things like that, and I think it might be a spot where, hey, this could be a par for disaster for him for the end of the season. But the fact that he's 14% owned, the fact that he's free 99, I'm not going to really care if he gets blown up. I could add him, I could stash him, I could see what's going on, but I'm not going to have great expectation. He hits, awesome. He doesn't hit, who cares? Literally, who cares? Just drop him as fast as you picked him up. That's really about it. He's due back on, what did I see here? On the 1st, which is this week. I don't know if he's going to be getting that start this weekend, but he's definitely worth a stash, especially if he can come back within the next week and a half and kind of round it out and figure it out and see if, hey, we can see if he can get some value out of Nestor Cortes. So definitely try and stash him, 14% owned.
Yeah, Matt. So I still like Nasty Nestor. I don't know if it was because he was with the Yankees or what it may be. I think there's something left in the tank. He's been really good through his 4 rehab starts in the minors. It's a 1 ERA, 18 innings, 18 strikeouts, and a 0.72 whip. So he's been on fire down in the minors. Looking really good. And even with the Yankees, in 2024, it wasn't a bad season. It was a serviceable season. We still used him in fantasy baseball. 3.77 ERA, 174 innings, 162 strikeouts, and a 1.15 whip. Not too shabby at all. I like Nestor Cortes. Honestly, I like him. If I had the choice between him and heel right now, I'm taking Nasty Nestor and put me in the books for that one. 14% owned for Nasty Nestor, and of course he pitches for those Milwaukee Brewers. But before we move on and get into what Spencer Jones has been doing in the minors and who is the new number one prospect in all of baseball, those names and more coming up next. And all right, time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor to your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol. And it's going to turn it into a quick, energizing shot, right? Whether you're sinking birdies or making memories with friends, this is this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. Come on. And you know how annoying that could be if you're out there on the green, right? If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, and you can use this promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th. On one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order Transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. And all right, guys, let's keep it going. And let's talk about, honestly, might be the hottest prospect in all of baseball. It is Spencer Jones of the New York Yankees. And listen, I'm not just saying that because, I'm a Yankee fan. This kid has been legit. He's 6'7", 240 in the minors this year, and that's across 2 different levels. He's hitting 314 over 68 games with 69 runs, so more runs than games played. And you know how many home runs he's got? 29 bombs in 68 games for Spencer Jones. He has been on fire. 57 RBIs. The walk to strikeout ratio needs work, so I don't think the average is going to hold up this high. But yeah, listen, he can still be a 270, 280 hitter, 42 walks to 94 strikeouts. And he's stolen 16 bases as well, and he's got wheels too, so don't be confused. He's had a 43 steal season back as 2 years ago, and he stole 25 bags last year. I love me some Spencer Jones. And the big thing is, though, which really bothers me a bit about Spencer Jones, and it's has nothing to do with him, actually. It has to do with the Yankees. I'm just mad that he didn't get called up when Judge went down. So when else do you call the kid up then, right? I don't know when else you do it. So that's the thing that makes me nervous here. I don't know what the Yankees are doing. I've heard speculations of trade rumors with Spencer Jones, but I don't see how the Yankees would do that unless they got a haul for him. And I'd be very angry as a Yankee fan if they did that, if they traded Spencer Jones right now while he's, one of the hottest prospects in all of the minor leagues and didn't get a huge major return for him. So it's just a weird situation where the kid should have probably got called up by now, but the way he's tearing up the minors, it hasn't happened. I don't think he's a mustache for that very reason, because I think we would have saw him already if his call-up was super, super imminent. There was nothing more. I think, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but he had a stretch, I think, the last week or 2 weeks ago where he homered, I think it was 9 times in 13 games. He's just been on another level right now. So definitely watch list worthy. Definitely go to your watch list. Those Spencer Jones of the New York Yankees outfielder on your watch list. And keep your ear to the ground. Of course, we got you covered on the Insider's Track. If you want to join us there, as soon as he gets the call, he will be. We'll let you guys know about that. But Spencer Jones, one of the most interesting prospects in all of baseball right now, especially with the 29 home runs in 68 games. Love him.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, look, it's always fun to watch a big guy like this start getting hot in the minors with that call around the corner. Especially, I think the only reason the Yankees haven't called him up is for control, and that time is coming soon. I think probably right after the trade deadline, we'll see him come up, or he might be getting moved. That's the other thing, and that could also slow him down. So just to be aware and see, but track. But if he doesn't get traded, I think right after the trade deadline, my guy is going to be called up. And it's just going to be fun. So just keep an eye out and ear to the ground, like Dom said. Let's move on. Let's talk about the new number 1 top prospect in all of the MLB, Connor Griffin of the Pittsburgh Pirates plays shortstop. Dude is a monster of a man. He stands at 6'4", 225 pounds. He has one of the most interesting, kind of like profile in terms of prospect reports. 20 out of 45 hit tool, 20 out of 70 game power, raw power 60 out of 70, speed 70 out of 70. Just little reports on inside of who Connor Griffin is. They're saying that he has the ability to have 30-30 seasons, hit for average, and has gold glove ability. He is a great defender, which mixed with the performance and the fact that he can play defense can actually get him to the big sooner. I'm not saying I'm stashing him unless I start hearing even like little shakes of him coming up or them talking about him getting hot, and they start hearing the analysts just, calling for him to get the call, because we've seen it with like Juan Soto and things like that. But him having his first lick of the minors and him being only 19 years old gives me some reservation of whether the Pirates are going to do it, especially since they're a team that's a little bit more conservative because they love to control and not pay their players. So if it was any other organization, I'd say there's a good chance he gets called up. He's a guy I'm paying attention to. In dynasty leagues or, like that, I'm trying to just hold on to him. If he's out there, you add him, obviously. But Connor Griffin, I think, is just going to absolutely crush it, and just a little more inside baseball, what he's doing this year, across two different levels, 331 at bats, 79 runs, 17 doubles, 3 triples, 13 bombs, 55 ribs, and 46 stolen bases already, batting a lovely 332, an OBP of 409, a slug of 520, and an OPS of 929. The dude could be an outright stud if he gets the call. I'm super excited for him. The ability is just there. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I don't think he gets the call. There's a slim chance he gets it this year. 6'4", 225, big beefy baseball boy, power speed combo, as Matt mentioned. You know what's crazy? I know he's played some outfield, and I'm throwing a wild comp out there. Kind of reminds me of young Mike Trout. Has the hit tool, power, speed. If only he played for a good team, though. But listen, that's why he reminds me of Mike Trout. Mike Trout hardly has ever played for a good team in his career. So I know it's only one team, but when I say team, I mean like there's hardly ever been a good lineup around him. Slim and few in between the lineups for the Angels that could go with Trout. So that's why Connor Griffin reminds me of him. I love all the tools, and also like a big boy like Trout. So if you play in any kind of dynasty league, or I'd say any keeper league where you keep like, I don't know, 75% of your team might be worth the stash in a situation like that. If your league values prospects and he's not owned, he obviously should be at this point. But Connor Griffin, great name. Keep him on your radar. Definitely should be on watch list just in case there is a slim chance he does get the call. Let's move on to let's do a pitcher. We've done a couple of bats. Let's do a pitcher. Let's do my buddy Jonah Tong. I know we've talked about him a couple times on the prospect episodes, but let's do a little bit of check-in. He's actually moved up the prospect radar a little bit since last time we spoke about him. He's up to the 53rd prospect in all of baseball. And listen, he's still been rocking and rolling. 17 starts down in the minors, a 1.72 ERA, 89 innings pitched, 138 strikeouts at 89 innings. Love it. Batters are hitting 141 against him, an 0.9 whip. The kid's been absolutely dominant. He's got really good stuff. Got the big fastball. Gets up there to, about 97, but sits, around 94. Also throws a really, really big curveball, gets a lot of swings and misses on that one. Slider isn't really his best pitch, but it's something that he's worked on this year that has, got him to, where he's been. And then he even throws a changeup as well, which is actually, another good pitch for him. So a guy like Jonah Tong, big strikeout upside. The thing is with the Mets right now, they gave out a lot of bad contracts. I just hate to say it, it is what it is. Paid Manaea a lot of money, paid Frankie Montas. So the guys like that, even if they're not pitching well, are probably sticking around for now. But injury, a lot of these old guys in the rotation, could get banged up, as I'm trying to pull up the exact rotation right now. Manaea, Holmes, Peterson, Senga, Montas, kind of almost asking for an injury. My opinion, I think Tong is the next guy up, if the Mets do need somebody to get called up. And honestly, if Tong gets called up, he's like an instant ad for me. So, maybe not a mustache, but definitely keep him on your radar and watch list for now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, I love the park, and it's good for rookies like that. So I'm going to do it. But for time, I'm going to move on. I'm going to look at Travis Bazzana, which I just want to call him. I want to call him Travis Bonanza, but unfortunately, he hasn't been able to live up to the nickname this year. So a little bit underperforming. He was actually my favorite, prospect coming into the draft, and that's going up against Connor Griffin, Caglioni and others, and even Nick Kurtz. I thought he had the most upside in all honesty, and he's kind of disappointed in a lot of ways. The power didn't kind of show in the minors this season. Only posted about, 4 home runs, the ribs and doubles are there and things like that. The batting average, even though you look at the batting average, it isn't impressive, but you know, through 173 at bats, he's struck out, 49 times with 30 walks. So I think that the plate discipline is there, and I think a couple things need to come through. He's obviously a lot further from the bigs than we expect him, but we need to talk about him on that off chance that, you know, Cleveland just decides to push him and he goes on a hot run because he has that ability. You know, you look at his profile. I got to read this quick. So we're about to go 40 out of 50 hit tool, 40 out of 55 game power, raw power 50 out of 55, speed 60 out of 60, and can field. The fielding is the biggest part that gets these rookies up, and then the bat also then is also a driving force. So we might see a little bonanza towards the end of the year if possible. And if he gets a call up, I'm definitely going to add him just speculatively. So just a name to keep an eye out, not a guy I'm running to keep and eat up a roster spot. So that's about it. Dom, you got anything before we got to go?
Yeah, Bazzana was the number one pick in 2024. I think there's a lot of upside here. He's 22, still a little bit young. Has been really good in Double A this year since he got moved up. So he's been a lot better recently. But yeah, Matt, you take us home.
All right, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share this show. And make sure to please scream it from the rooftops, share our stuff on social media. Share it all in all caps, do everything you can to share the show because we love bringing it to you each and every week. And look, you might feel like you're down and out in the count with your leagues, but I promise you, stick to it. You man that waiver wire, you're going to be able to make them playoffs. So stick around. And when you're done, check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB for great real MLB coverage. With that being said, guys, peace out.
Sure.